This episode of What the Tech is brought to you by Casper, an online retailer of premium mattresses for a fraction of the price, because everyone deserves a great night's sleep. Get $50 off any mattress purchase by visiting casper.com/Andrew and enter promo code Andrew at checkout.
What the Tech?
Hey everybody, welcome to What the Tech. I'm Andrew Zarian. Of course, I'm joined by the one, the only Mr. Thurrott.com himself, Paul Thurrott. How you doing, Paul?
Pretty good.
It's gonna take a while for me to get used to that. Thurrott.com.
I know.
For all your Thurrott needs. How's it going? How's it going with the launch? We're a couple days away.
Well, you know, it's frantic right now, but it's going great. I mean, I in some ways it's overwhelming. There's a group of people who I'm eager to discuss in more detail at a later time, who are fantastic and are working really hard and, you know, trying to make this thing happen. So
it's a big deal. It's a big transition for you.
Yep.
For people who don't know, Paul is launching his new site on Saturday.
Yeah, it's kind of a soft launch on Saturday. I mean, the official launch is going to be Tuesday because Monday's a holiday. But yeah, it's going to be live on Saturday. Obviously, you know, we're starting from scratch, so I have to sort of try to populate the site with some articles in each, you know, of the sections and all that. So it's going to be...
You got to fill it up.
Yeah.
So on Saturday, guys, go to Thurrott.com. It's a soft launch, so if there's any problems, obviously, you know, keep that in mind. It's a soft launch. And is there anything they could... Are you accepting suggestions at this point? I mean, how are you going to do it?
Yeah, I mean, well, so obviously when you think about starting over, you know, one of the big issues is that, you know, you're starting over. I don't have all the 15 years worth of content standing behind me that I had at the super site. But on the other hand, I'm starting over, which is kind of cool because I don't have 15 years of kind of dead weight sitting behind me either. And so I can kind of start fresh and cover things from a kind of from a fresh perspective, you know? So when the site launches, I mean, it's going to have all the basics you would expect. I'm going to be covering a lot of the Microsoft consumer technologies, especially, and, you know, related things with iOS and Android where appropriate and all that kind of stuff, as I did on the super site. But I have some ideas, you know, for this site, and they won't be fleshed out on day one, but there are things I'm going to continue to do, you know, device reviews, et cetera. But this is like kind of a neat chance to go back and rethink this stuff. You know, and when you think about Windows 10, especially too, and the sort of reemergence of the PC is something really important.
Yeah. I
want to write a series of articles about, you know, building a PC, improving and upgrading PCs, existing PCs.
And that's great. I mean, that's something that I haven't really gotten from your older site. You know, that's not something that you've really done. Yeah. And that's a great angle because, you know, we were just talking about this a couple days ago, and I think you mentioned it to me. You're like, yeah, I'm actually I'm building a machine. We were talking about components and stuff. So it's really exciting. Guys, this is what I really recommend you guys go do. Go to Thurrott.com right now, and you can subscribe to his newsletter. It's an email newsletter. When it launches, you're going to be getting stuff from Paul. It's going to be called Thurrott Daily, which is awesome. So you can go subscribe there. I'm already subscribed. The day that he set this thing up, I just went there and I subscribed. It's going to be awesome. I'm really excited for this. I like the cup of coffee. Is that your logo, the cup of coffee?
So actually, what's the logo look like that's on there now? I gotta, because we have a new logo.
There you
go.
All
right. So there's actually a cool logo coming. It's based on the coffee cup, but I guess you'll see that Saturday. It's neat.
What's the story with the coffee cup?
What's that?
What's the story with the coffee cup?
Well, if you, this actually dates back over 10 years, but we were on a trip to Rome, my family was, and my son took a picture of me when I was drinking a coffee out of a giant coffee cup, and that became like the site logo kind of thing. In fact, I think my Twitter avatar, I can't see it because is a kind of Andy Warhol version of that picture with the, you know, blue, green, red, yellow colors or whatever. And so on the super site for many years had used sort of a variation of that logo. Right now it's kind of a cartoon, you know, version or whatever, but I wanted to carry that forward as sort of an identifier.
That's awesome.
So
I'm very excited. I'm really excited.
You'll see it on Saturday. It's neat. I actually think the way it came out is really, really cool. So.
How we're going to talk about tech, guys, but I'm really curious because I think a lot of you guys, as many of people in our audience, they're web developers, they're content creators, and it's like a nightmare for us, right? To think about the concept of forgetting about what we're doing and totally starting over from scratch. You have 15 years in on your website, so. Like, what has it been like over the last couple of weeks where you're, like, gathering all this stuff and, like, taking that plunge?
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of freaking out. I mean, just the decision to do this was obviously very stressful and time-consuming. And getting this thing kind of up and running from scratch has been very stressful. And to be fair, I mean, in many ways, I'm not even doing most of the work. I mean, I have to create the content, obviously, but that's what I do. I mean, that's the type of thing that I do. It's a little tough from day one because you don't have any, again, it has to be something there. I can't just start with, hey, I'm Paul. There's nothing here. Thanks for visiting. So I do have to do that, but figuring out what that is has been tough. But whatever. So Saturday will come and I think we're going to be in good shape. Certainly by Tuesday, we should be in really good shape. So
it's awesome. Very, very cool. Thurrott.com, guys. Go check it out. It's not an ad. This was not an ad.
It's not an ad.
This is not an ad.
No, it's a life change, Andrew.
You know what? That should be the slogan. Thurrott.com. This is not an ad. It's a busy time.
I'm not going on a diet. I'm making a life change.
Yeah, the new year is here. And then you're going to be traveling in about 2 weeks on top of all this.
Actually, less than 2 weeks. So it's actually a week from today.
It's a week from today. Holy crap, cow. Oh, my God. Yeah, so. It is next week.
Yeah, it's coming up really quickly all of a sudden, But that's also good timing for the site because I'll have, something obvious to write about, I can't get this straight ever for some reason, from day one. So that will be nice too. So
let's talk about the Microsoft event. This is the consumer event. We had, I guess, the unveiling of Windows 10 that happened a couple months ago. That was more of would you say it was enterprise centric? Was that it?
I wouldn't. And I mean, that's what Microsoft said, but it wasn't. In fact, whatever. It's whether we call these things beta 1, beta 2, whatever, like we used to in the old days. Whether we call them the consumer preview, the technical preview, the developer preview, whatever, like we kind of do today. It doesn't really matter what we call these things. That initial release was not an enterprise preview in any way, shape, or form. I think what they were trying to do was keep casual consumers away. By giving it such a name, it sort of suggested this isn't necessarily for you. The truth is, we're still some months away from seeing the full enterprise feature set. I suspect next week we'll see a little bit more of that. But I think the big deal for Windows 10 from the enterprise perspective is going to be the management technologies, which they've spoken about very vaguely. But they're not making those tools available today. That will happen sometime this year. So that's coming soon. But for next week, I think there's a couple of really big things happening. One is I do think we're going to see the near final kind of consumer take on what Windows 7 will entail.
The start menu is going to be what it's supposed to be. And overall,
color schemes, more, that kind of stuff. And I think that's cool. I think that's going to be genuinely interesting. And one of the big themes for this year, I think, is the kind of resurgence of the PC, and Windows 10 will play a big role in that. But the other half of it is that Windows 10 isn't just for PCs; it's also for devices. And devices are all kinds of things. But let's just say smartphones and tablets. For example, we haven't seen a lot or any of that stuff so far. And so I expect. I don't think we're going to get the build on day one, but I think I know we're going to get a version of Windows 10 for phones that we can test on our Windows 8 phones, that we may have today. We're going to see the Windows 10 interfaces for tablets, which will be the same as the one for phones, I think. And we're going to see that is it Confluence, or I already forgot the name of it, the interface where Windows 10 will automatically adapt on hybrid devices. And so if you're walking around with like a detachable screen, using it like a tablet, and you plug it back in your keyboard base, it will adapt on the fly to accommodate that change, rather than force you to make the change yourself. So next week's going to be kind of a big deal, I think.
Is there any rumbling as far as, and I always ask this question because the biggest problem that Windows 8 had was, I mean, it had tremendous issues, but perception, right? The perception of Windows 8 was this Frankenstein of an operating system where
yes.
you were unfamiliar with it, and it was a whole new thing, and this tiled UI was different. In Microsoft's, are they looking at this and saying like, okay, well, that perception issue should be gone because look, you could use desktop the way you know desktop, and you could use the other one the way you know how to use it. So are they kind of like hoping they're going to fight the perception issue more than fixing bugs?
Yeah. Right. I mean, so my take on this, and I think this would be Microsoft's take as well, is that the point of this product is that if you're, no matter where you're coming at it from, either as a Windows 7 user on kind of a traditional non-touch PC or a Windows 8 user, either on a PC or some kind of tablet or some kind of hybrid device, that Windows 10 represents a logical, non-jarring, non-scary upgrade for you. That the capabilities and the user interfaces that you expect to know and understand are all present now in the new product. And you know, it's funny. Frankenstein is a great example. I've used that phrase myself to describe.
I don't like using it, you know, but that's really how.
Well, it's just it is an unholy meshing of two different things. I mean, you know, Microsoft's, you know, they had this beautiful long-lived desktop product, operating system Windows, and then they had this brand new mobile platform. It could have been a standalone OS, and they kind of just jammed it all together. And the result was something that was non-optimal on both sides of the fence. Those Windows RT devices, 2 generations of them, went out the door with the desktop, which is, you know, it just was, the software was not mature enough not to have the desktop. But that interface is not optimal on a touch device. Likewise, on a desktop computer. I just had lunch with my brother today, and he's still complaining about Windows 8. You know, you get it on a regular laptop, and it's like, what is all this stuff?
Yeah.
Like, what? There's like charms popping up over here, some weird switcher interface over here. Start screen stinks. You know, Windows 8 didn't satisfy anybody, and so you know, I think Windows 10 is going to do right by everybody, and I think that's one of the cool things about it from their perspective.
Was this like, in a way, Windows 8? I mean, we've spoken about it many times. Windows 8, part of Windows, the reason why Windows 8 was a failure, and you know what I mean by that. Because hardware had not caught up, right? And Microsoft is always ahead of the hardware and ahead of the OEMs. Was Microsoft's vision of computing in 2015 totally different than what the market wanted?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it was their vision of computing in 2012 or whatever to begin with. But
but what did they envision? Did they envision this magic world where everything is touchscreen and you're going in and out, and you're going from desktop when you need to type something, and then you're just...
Yeah, I mean, there are kind of these apocryphal stories about Steven Sinofsky and his team there, and why they did what they did, and I maybe they're not even worth repeating, but I think the point is Microsoft doesn't often get enough credit for moving quickly to embrace market changes. The truth is that, you know, Windows historically, the big dig against Windows historically used to be that it was always too far ahead of the hardware, which is a cute way of saying it ran slowly, right?
Yeah.
You know, but in this case, it really was ahead of the hardware because obviously the PC makers didn't share this vision that Microsoft had, because in 2012 and 2013, you know, they didn't really release any really good tablet or hybrid products for Windows. The reason Microsoft made Surface is because they saw this coming. They knew that they weren't going to get the support they needed from their partners, and so they came out with a device that they thought was emblematic of what they were trying to achieve on the software side. That's all changed. First of all, Windows has improved. I mean, even before Windows 10, you know, Windows 8.1 with Update 1 is a vastly more mature OS that works a lot better.
Absolutely,
on a system, a lot better. And then this past holiday season, what we saw at the low end, the mid-range, high end of the market, and at CES, I should say too, stunning designs that consumers and business users alike will want, and aren't just warm, you know, retreads of previous products, but are in fact elegant, beautiful designs. And I think we mentioned this last week. You know, it would have been nice if this stuff could have been around a couple of years ago, and yeah, that would have been nice, but that would have been impossible. I mean, the Chromebook style, you know, the Stream laptops. I mean, those were phenomenal, but
that wasn't really the vision, right? These like HP and Dell and all these guys were.
The Stream is one thing, right? So the Stream laptops are great for what they are, which is they're low cost but high quality. They don't have touch, right? And they don't bend around and spindle and change and do anything like that. HP does sell devices that do those things. They cost a little bit more, right? And so there's actually they have several lines of products to do that. It's not really worth stepping through them all. But Stream represents kind of the entry level. They have Pavilion products that are like the mainstream, and Envy products that are kind of more performance, more enthusiast oriented. They have business product lines and all that kind of stuff. It doesn't really matter. And then of course you can extrapolate this out to all the other PC makers. But we're starting to see like high end Surface quality devices from a variety of companies, right? Not just really nice Ultrabooks. We've had those for a couple of years, Ultrabooks with the touch or whatever, but transforming hybrid PCs, 2-in-1s, detachables, these things have a million names, but we're starting to see some really amazing products across the board. And Windows 10 will benefit from this, right? It's one of those things. It's like when the incoming president is elected and the economy, takes off and he takes all the credit. But the truth is, the groundwork happened over the past couple of years. It didn't just happen because you walked up and appeared. And that's going to, Windows 10 will benefit from that same thing. I mean, the truth is right now, there are fantastic devices and PCs out there. And we'll see next week, but I don't see anything coming in Windows 10 that will require, a brand new category of device. I don't think we're going to go through that again. So
are there any surprises with this operating system, considering the fact that technically a lot of the things like the start menu was supposed to be in this update 2 for Windows 8?
I think there are surprises still to come. I mean, obviously we've been talking a lot about things like the combination of Windows Phone and Windows RT, and does that really happening? And will they have the the cojones to call that Windows Mobile? Probably not.
I hope they do.
I do too. I don't think we know everything about Windows 10. I think they still have some surprises left, and so we'll have to we'll see next week and beyond. There's a build conference coming up in late April, early May, around developer stuff. The Tech Ed replacement happens a week after that in May, which is called Ignite, and I think that's really where the enterprise management type stuff happens. Yeah. And then they have the summer to get it right and release that thing.
And release it, and they're missing back to school again.
as they do. Yeah.
Why, Microsoft? Why? Yep. Why do you miss it every year? I'm excited for it, and I know a lot of people, in the tech world that were so down on them.
Yep.
They kind of had this different line. They're like, "Yeah, I'm really excited about Windows 10. I'm from what I heard, it's great, and it's essentially almost the same exact thing."
Windows 10 is important on so many levels. It's almost hard to overstate it. It's not just PCs, right? And it's not just PCs and devices. I think it's cool that they'll finally have a single OS that works across phones and tablets. I think that makes sense. That's what Apple does. It's what Android does. But it's really more than that, because it runs on this kind of range of devices, all the way from like little embedded Internet of Thing type devices, all the way up through these perceptive pixel gigantic screen type devices. Xbox One, right? So it's a single platform. It's a single app platform. Developers can write universal apps where it's very easy to create different executables that work across all those different platforms, and a single store experience that works intelligently across all the devices. So it's not just PC. That's a big part of what I care about, but I really feel like this is there's nothing like this. If you think about, granted, these are slightly less mature platforms, but Android and Chrome OS are two completely different things.
Yeah.
Google has different platforms, right, for those different kinds of products. Apple has Mac, and then they have iOS. And so they have two different things. I know they're based on the same thing, but they're by different user experiences. The same apps don't run across each, et cetera. It's a very exciting kind of thing. With Microsoft, we always have to wonder if it's not too little, too late, et cetera. But it's.
Well, I mean, for me,
amazing.
We kind of know what Windows 10 is going to be, but the bigger question is the future of Windows Phone and Windows, I guess, RT or whatever they're going to call it. You're right. Is it going to be Windows Mobile? Is it going to be a unified system? It makes more sense. I'm more inclined to buy, and I think many people too. I love Windows Phone, and I love the UI for Windows Phone. That on a tablet would be phenomenal. One unified store. The apps are all the same, and you just use that and you download whatever you want, and it's like iOS.
Right.
So for me, I look forward to hearing information about that future, that division of Windows. The operating system, I kind of know what it's going to be.
Yeah. The other thing, I mean, a couple of kind of related notes. I mean, I've been running the Windows 10 pre-release builds, since day one, which was whatever, October 1st or 2nd, until very recently. And so one of the things I did in preparation for this upcoming trip and this upcoming event is I went back to previous versions of the OSs and all the devices. So Surface is running, Windows 8.1. Right now, I'm back to Windows 8.1 on my desktop computer. My Ultrabook, which I remember I bought right before Windows 8 came out in 2012, system imaged it all the way back to the factory, reset Windows 7, right, with Service Pack 1. It is notable that the primary benefit of Windows is not really Windows. You know what I mean? It's like the apps.
Yeah.
And I think one of the cool things about Windows 8.1, 2, and Windows 10 in particular is that you get all of the stuff, you get all the Chrome web apps, the coming Internet Explorer web apps. You get all the desktop applications, Photoshop, Visual Studio, iTunes, whatever, Office. And you get all these new mobile apps. And you can run them side by side on the desktop if you have that kind of class machine. And to me, it's become the most versatile. I've always kind of made this argument that Windows was better or more efficient or whatever it might have been at the time. But I think when you look at Windows 10, you realize, wow, this is like this. It's like everything. It's kind of amazing. It's neat. And so, I'm just looking forward to seeing what they're doing, obviously, as I always am, and then getting going on this thing. I'm just excited about it. And I'm not, a lot of times with Microsoft and Windows, it's like, oh, here we go again. These guys, they just, but this one, I really feel like there's something really positive.
Have they said why they skipped 9? I mean, I kind of have an idea on why, because they want to get so far away from 8 where they're like, hey, look, you got to upgrade. By the way, not just from 8, but also from 7, right? Because one of the tricks this time around is getting the guys who are on the legacy system to upgrade. It was a problem they had with Windows XP. That was a problem of their own making, and they had to kind of artificially prop XP up for more years than they would have normally. Still a problem with XP. I know people hanging on for dear life on XP.
Yeah, and so they don't want that to happen with Windows 7. And I think from a perception standpoint, Windows 7 to Windows 10 is a huge jump. I mean, I think people hear those numbers and they think, wait a minute. like I missed a lot here. What's going on?
I got a Windows 8. I got to buy a new one. I'm 2 years behind.
Yeah. And so I think, honestly, I think that's all it is. They'll tell you they feel like it's a big enough deal that it warranted that jump, which is silly. They've never done such a thing.
I mean, numbers don't mean anything at this point, right?
Well, in this case, though, it's in the name, right? So, Windows 7 was not Windows version 7 or whatever.
6 point something, right?
Yeah. And so it's really just a brand. And, I think they're just trying to differentiate it.
Do you think this is going to be the end of, like the major Windows updates? Is it just going to be called Windows from now on? Because at this point, it really makes no sense, right? They're pretty much giving it away for free. Right. You're not getting these massive changes every 3 years. You're going to get these incremental upgrades and changes. And do you think it's necessary to call them Windows 8, 9, 10, whatever, XP2?
Up until about a year ago, I would have said, yeah, this matters quite a bit. Truth is, I don't think Windows becomes, I'm not using the right terms. Explicit is not the right word, but a direct moneymaker for Microsoft. In the past, Windows used to be Microsoft's #1 business. It was Windows licensing that drove the company's fortunes over the many years. Today, Windows is possibly the 3rd biggest business at Microsoft. It's not as big of a deal. And part of the reason is, these mobile OSs happened, and that's become a much bigger deal. And people aren't upgrading as much. And, they've been forced to do things like really lower the cost of Windows licensing to OEMs so that they can release these cheap devices and try to get some volume going in the market. I think Windows becomes even less of a financial force for Microsoft directly. I think it's important indirectly because it's the engine that drives this entire ecosystem. And if they want people to adopt and pay for things like, OneDrive and Office 365 and whatever, you're going to have the best experience on Windows. You're going to want a Windows device or multiple Windows devices and so forth. And that, that kind of drives everything else. So in that world, suddenly it's just Windows makes some sense, and that's part of the reason why I don't actually think they're going to go with the name Windows Mobile, because why add another name? The problem with RT is no one knew what it meant. The problem with the Windows Phone is that Windows Phone is a terrible name. And I think when you just say Windows, it's like, yeah, we get it. Microsoft's OS is Windows,
I know that this is going to be a great operating system. Things are going to go good, but it's interesting that their approach to Windows and how that's totally changed from the time that, Windows 98 and XP and even Vista, this
Sure.
perception of what Windows is no longer that. And you're right. How do you make money on Windows when you have to give it away for free when everybody's giving away the operating system for free?
Yeah.
So their entire focus is different. Are we going to get anything other than Windows at this announcement, or is it just going to be Windows?
I think, well, I don't know. I mean, they haven't said, and I haven't heard. I think the big thing is going to be the Windows 10 consumer and phone, tablet integration. There's been some talk about there being some Office announcements either at or around this event. People, you probably have noticed, are getting a little agitated on the Microsoft side because Microsoft has been updating Office on Android and iOS and not on Windows or Windows Phone.
Yeah.
They've said publicly in the past, in fact, it might have been as long ago as Build, I don't remember when they said this, but that Office, the next version of Office, the touch version of Office rather, would not ship until Windows 10 shipped. And so if Windows 10 was delayed, then Office would be delayed. And that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. I can't understand why they can't just put this thing out, at least in preview form.
I'm still waiting for a new version on the Mac.
Yeah, and that's coming too. And so not just Office, but OneDrive for Business, which has never shipped to the Mac. And so there's OneDrive stuff going on. They're integrating OneDrive and OneDrive for Business. That's going to happen on the Mac soon. They just did announce that recently, by the way. Mac Office will happen this year. A full-blown Office for Windows will happen this year, but just for like a touch product, like a product that works on the tablets, that works on the phones, a modern version, I think they call it Office Touch for Windows, will happen this year, but hopefully they'll do a preview much earlier than the final release. And it would be really neat to be able to test it alongside Windows 10.
Are we getting any information? And I'm sure next week you're going to have so much more information about this, but people constantly ask me, and they send me emails asking, I get about the features, right? I get the features are different, but what kind of performance changes are we going to see within Windows? Are we going to see changes to the way that Windows handles battery life? Are we going to see how it handles, CPU resources? We don't really hear much of that when we're talking about, the changes in Windows currently.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think every generation of Windows has specific things they need to catch up on, and so making this thing run efficiently on ultra mobile hardware, up, and then of course the resulting app platform, of course, was a big part of Windows 8. I think there's this stuff happening in the PC space that Windows just benefits from. Core M processors, wearable processors,
Absolutely, yeah.
They just pick up the stuff. You saw at CES the announcements about the battery life on some of these machines were astronomical.
Oh my God,
finally.
the new Intel chipsets. I mean, they're going to be great.
Yeah, and that's just benefit that Microsoft gets because they've been doing this stuff for years and years and years. They don't have to do anything specific, and maybe they will do things specific as well. But even if they didn't, they just pick that up, and so you get these Ultrabooks that get 8 or 10 hours of battery life, and you slap on a keyboard base, and it gets 17 or 18 hours of battery life or whatever. And so I think that's that stuff matters too. But I fundamentally, I don't think that's what's wrong with the PC platform or Windows anymore. I mean, that you're always looking at what's the trend here, and some may describe the trend right now as a step backwards. I don't really see it that way, but it's more of a kind of a nuanced understanding of where the PC is heading. 3 years ago, it's like everyone's touching screens. We got to go touch, and today it's like, yeah, you know what? Everyone is touching screens. But that's not really the primary interface for these things. We still need a good, keyboard and mouse experience. We still need a healthy desktop environment. I mean, we're kind of stepping back from the cliff of touch first and then touch only, which is kind of where we were heading.
Yeah, it's a major difference. I mean, it's have they, if they change Windows and they change RT in general, right? How I'm curious, and this is what a lot of people are excited about, is what's their approach with RT? I'm sure RT's dead, right? The term RT is going to be dead.
That is their approach,
because it's a stupid name. It really is. And I have to tell you, there was such a branding issue with that, and there's an identity crisis, even more than Windows in general,
right.
Windows 8 in general. But that was even worse because you don't know what it is. That's what I want to see, and I want to see if they're going to announce any kind of hardware that's going to go along with this.
Yeah. So again,
because that changes the entire approach to Surface.
Here's my guess. I don't think Windows on ARM goes away, mostly because Windows Phone is ARM, right? That doesn't mean that we won't and can't see Intel-based Windows phones. Of course we can. We see that on the Android side as well, but I think that platform has been fairly well optimized for ARM, and I think there are still benefits to it, especially from power management and battery life and so forth. So my expectation, and this is just kind of based on me thinking through this, not about any internal information I may have, is that this thing, this Windows, whatever, mobile, I'll call it, will be aimed at ARM, will not have a desktop, will not run desktop applications. It will be unified between phones and tablets that are standalone tablets, that are, designed to be consumption devices essentially. And that once you move up to a hybrid convertible 2-in-1 transforming PC, whatever you want to call it, detachable, and then you run full Windows, and this is Windows with the desktop, and it's probably going to be Intel 99% of the time. Because that's where that software is, the other software. So
something that I've really learned over the last year or so is that people really love Media Center. And is there any feature for Media Center? Is there any feature to them announcing so? And I'm getting messages as we're doing this, and I never knew it was that commonly used amongst the enthusiasts. I thought it was just a feature that nobody used. I used it years ago, but after a while, I stopped using it. I know you use it for some time, but is there anything like features integrated within Windows that they're going to comment on that, or are they just making sure that people know, listen, there's the start menu's back, and we're changing the way we're doing things?
I mean, I obviously this past year, if you wanted Media Center to come back, this was the time to complain because they seem to be listening to everybody.
Yeah, and a lot of people did complain about it.
Yeah, there are these markets that I think are actually pretty big. It's just that they're not pretty big compared to, major consumer electronic markets. Those are the types of people that want to use a third-party TV recording DVR type solution of any kind other than what comes with their cable. This has got to be like 1% of the population. I would also put people who use some kind of over-the-air antenna to grab HD signals in their town or city and watch this and get them for free, right? That kind of thing. You can do this. It's quality is amazing. It's too much work for most people. The people who do that are, they're very particular about it. They tend to evangelize that type of thing. They know that what they're doing is better. I mean, they're smart enough to do it, right? So I think better is kind of a tough term, but they know the advantage of it. I'm just worried that they're not a big enough audience for Microsoft to focus on, that it would be easier to say, we're not doing this. The problem I have with that is that I don't think that software should be allowed to die. I think Media Center is excellent. And if Microsoft doesn't plan to upgrade or provide it with Windows 10 in any way, shape, or form, they should give it away for free. And they should open source it. And they should let someone else take control of it and let it keep going. I hope that that's what happens, because I just look at all the other stuff that, when you think about something like Xbox One, right? Xbox One has a pass-through for your cable system. It doesn't have a DVR solution of its own. It doesn't have a replacement. It doesn't have that Media Center kind of thing. You could see Media Center elements in the One Guide, right?
Oh, you could definitely.
User interface, like the stuff that they really got right there, has a direct kind of correlation to Media Center. But I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, sadly. I have a lot of questions for you. I want to talk about the new browser also, because it's strange to me that they're working on another browser other than IE. right? Because and I want to ask you questions about that. But you know what, Paul? It is time to talk about a new sponsor to the show. Okay. People like us, Paul. A lot of people like us, and I want to. Wow. I want to talk
like Sally Fields.
You like me. You really like me. I want to talk about Casper. Now, they're new to the podcast. They contacted us, and I was really excited about this because I need a new mattress. I have a Kingsdown. It's a competing brand. I don't know if I'm supposed to mention competing brands, but I paid $2,000 for this thing years ago. And I have to tell you, it was the worst mattress I ever bought in my life. It was way too soft. I've been dying on that thing for like 3 years. So Casper sent a mattress over. I got a Casper mattress. I hooked it up, set it up. I got a king size too, so we upgraded our entire bedroom set. And I have to tell you, I'm so happy about this thing. It uses two technologies, latex and memory foam. They come together perfectly for a great night's sleep. You're always cool. You're never tossing and turning because the sheets are too hot or too cold. The temperature is perfect. And this is the cool thing about it. The thing comes in a box. I've never seen a mattress come in a box. They deliver it in a box, and it was a little bizarre to see a mattress show up and just sitting in a box. So you pop it open and you set it up, and it's actually phenomenal. The pricing is great too, very inexpensive. The mattress started around $500. King size mattress is $950. Not bad at all. And they have a phenomenal deal for our audience. If you go to Casper.com/Andrew and you enter offer code or promo code Andrew at checkout, you get $50 off your entire purchase. This is actually one per audience member. That's how it works. I don't think you're going to have to buy more than one mattress, to be honest. Who buys 2-3 mattresses? But they actually have a phenomenal deal also. They have a 100-day period. It's a money-back guarantee. You can return it within 100 days if you don't like it, if you're not happy with it. And they don't charge you for it, obviously. It's phenomenal. I'm a big fan of the company. They're here in New York City, so it's even better. Casper.com is a website. Go to Casper.com/Andrew. You get $50 off when you use promo code Andrew at checkout. I want to thank Casper for supporting What the Tech, and I'm very excited with this. I'm very happy. I took the mattress and I threw it out the window and I said, goodbye. I never have to see you again. Thank Casper for supporting What the Tech. So, Paul.
Yes.
Let's talk about Spartan.
Okay.
What can you tell me about this? Because is this like I'm coming into this blind, right? And a lot of people are very surprised about this, that there is another browser that they're working on. Why?
Well, part of the reason is that, Internet Explorer is still the most used web browser in the world, but first of all, that's going to change, right? I mean, with all the mobile browsing going on between iOS and Android. So Chrome and Safari, I think are going to, or already have, if you look at that, you've combined that in with the desktop results. I'm not even really sure. But there's no real growth going on there, right? There's no excitement from developers and users around IE. I think people just kind of use it because it's there. They don't really think much about it. Microsoft has tried over, several versions really to embrace modern web standards, to infuse a bit of, kind of logic and science into this and say, guys, we need to hit the standard. It needs to render exactly as it's supposed to. We need to make sure this happens across all browsers. There's no reason we can't all use different rendering engines, but we got to get this stuff right. And man, does nobody listen to this? Yeah. Nobody listens. And I feel like they've been kind of shouting into the wind and no one's really paying attention. And so I think when this happened, I had wrote rather, that I suspect that there had been some kind of a healthy debate, and I found out since, by the way, this is absolutely true, in the Internet Explorer team, that they debated whether or not they shouldn't just switch to WebKit and stop doing their own rendering engine. That maybe rather than kind of rising against the tide here, what they could do was make a difference on the user experience, right? And do their own things around performance and whatever else. And that the rendering engine, is maybe doesn't matter. There's kind of an old school contingent, which is funny because IE, when I got started was the new thing at Microsoft, but there's kind of an old school contingent to the IE team. Apparently they went out and they have decided or voted that it's important for them to control the rendering engine, and they're going to continue doing so. But what they're going to do is fork the rendering engine, which is called Trident, into two versions. There'll be one that goes into Internet Explorer, which is for legacy websites, And then there's going to be a new version, which is for Trident, which is just a code name. This will be called whatever it's called, which is a new browser, which currently looks a lot like Chrome or Opera. It's got a very kind of Spartan user interface, which maybe was the name comes from. It supports extensibility and kind of those things that we expect from Chrome or any modern web browser. And I got to be honest, I don't think this is a great idea. I think yet another rendering engine web browser maybe isn't the right way to go.
I mean, this is not to kill IE, right? That's not the goal with this.
No, in fact, they'll probably. I mean, if they walk away from the Internet Explorer name, it will be in name only. I mean, this really is another version of IE.
Yeah,
they're going to call it something.
No, else. I'm talking about branding, right? I'm talking about the name recognition. This isn't them saying, okay, forget about Internet Explorer. We're going to go with Spartan as the browser now in Windows.
Well,
maybe. I mean,
it might be.
Maybe. I see this as them trying to grab mobile to some extent.
Yeah, I mean, so
they what are they, number 4 in mobile?
In mobile, yeah, probably.
Right, Chrome, Safari.
Anything else?
I think they're behind Opera. I actually think they're behind Opera. I got an email. One of our viewers, Coach Z, sent an email a couple of weeks ago, and I'm actually looking at the email. Yeah, they're behind. They're less than 2% in the mobile space. Right. But they really don't have that much market share in the mobile space. So,
right, because the only people using mobile IE are Windows Phone users, and
there's not many of them.
And a couple of people using, like the modern version of Internet Explorer, Windows 8 or Windows RT.
We have a lot of issues with the modern version. I mean, and I get these emails all the time. IE 11 has been really, as someone that has a website, we've had so many issues with IE 11. Our website does not. Everything works perfectly fine. There's no reason why it wouldn't work in IE, but at times it doesn't, at times it does. You have to refresh the website 2-3 times for the player to work properly. I have no answer to fixing this. It's out of our control. It's the way that our player works with IE. And because IE 11 is such a small fraction of our web browsers that are going to our website, it's not that big of a deal for us. But
well, when you're stuck with it,
it is a big deal. But
I used to call IE in Windows 8 was 2 browsers, 1 brain, and it was like the common rendering engine, but different front ends, obviously, different apps, and different feature sets, which is like a typical Microsoft. Unfortunately, it's a V1 product. So I think this Spartan thing is kind of another take on that. I mean, it's going to be 2 browsers, just like we have now in Windows 8 Plus.
I'm looking at some screenshots of it. You're right. It's very Chrome-ish.
Yeah.
It's nice. But do we need another browser?
Yeah. It's hard because there is no one browser that does everything that I want. So I do use a mix of IE and Chrome for the most part.
Yeah, I'm on Firefox and Chrome for me.
Yeah. The one thing that IE does. Well, it's probably more than one thing. That's not fair. There's more than one thing. So, for example, if one of the things I do is I make web app shortcuts for my email programs, right? So the Gmail version I use with Chrome, and when you do that in Chrome and Windows, I don't know if you can do this in the Mac yet, but at least in Windows, you get this kind of a plain window, which is very nice because it looks like a very basic app.
Yeah.
But let's say somebody sends you an email. Like a link in an email, and it says, "Hey, Paul, check out this awesome graphic." If you were to control click on that, it would have to open in a Chrome web browser window. You can't open a tab in this thing, and that is not ideal.
Yeah.
In Internet Explorer, if you were to have a similar web app shortcut in the taskbar, like you can do with IE, you can have tabs. You can also have these web apps be multiple tabs, and so the email app that I have, the email apps I actually have for IE in IE, there are 2 of them, and they're in tabs, and so I don't need different buttons on the toolbar. I have like one button, So IE does a couple of things for me that Chrome doesn't do, and so I can't really switch kind of exclusively to Chrome. But I mean, if Google implemented that stuff, I don't know if I'd ever use this thing again. IE drives me insane. It's really not.
IE on what? IE on desktop or IE on the on modern?
Desktop, yeah.
Okay, desktop. It's this weird crossroads they're at right now, and next week we'll find out. What day is it next week, the event?
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
21st.
Okay, so Wednesday. No, I'm looking at the wrong month. Hold on. Yeah, next Wednesday is the 21st. What are you planning on doing that day? Are you going to be live? Are you going to be broadcasting? Because I know you do Windows Weekly on Wednesdays.
Yeah, so I don't know. We're trying to sort that out. The hope is that we can do Windows Weekly from the show. It's going to be really busy.
Yeah.
And so we don't know. But yeah, that is the hope.
Oh, boy, Paul. Next week, you're going to be really busy. I'll tell you that.
I know. I know. And I haven't been out to Redmond in so long. I'm going to be out there for several days and hope to see a bunch of friends and people I just haven't seen in a long time. But, it's like I'm launching a new site. I can't just screw around the whole time either. I got to get to work. So it's going to be.
You know what's fascinating about all this, though? I mean, obviously, there's information coming out because it's a public beta to some extent, and people are downloading this, and you're able to run it. But it's been really hush-hush about this event as far as the future of Windows as in the mobile space goes, and just further development, hardware partners. And it's amazing to me how with Apple, nothing is hush-hush, and all that information is out weeks before, months before. We're getting, schematics of the hardware and exact information about the software and what's going to be running. But Microsoft has been pretty tight-lipped about a lot of this stuff.
Well, some of it leaks. The Spartan stuff leaked. Some of the color scheme stuff leaked. There's little things here and there. It depends on the event. I mean, we knew a lot. The Windows 10 ahead of that. We knew, Microsoft Band. I knew that was coming ahead of time. I didn't know the exact day, but I knew it was coming October. Barely mid-October. It just depends.
Yeah, I
mean,
know.
Apple stuff, especially when they're mostly hardware, right? I mean, that stuff. There are legal filings they have to make that
it's not 2 years
their partners
before it comes
that people are building things, and so that stuff tends to leak a lot.
Yeah, people are fantasizing now in the chat room. Windows 10 on a Dell XPS 13. Ooh,
sure,
going to be so nice. Paul, let's talk about. I got a couple things here I want to talk about. And last week we were discussing CES. CES is over. And obviously, it's all about 4K when it comes to televisions, right?
Okay.
All about 4K. And I have been having heated debates with people about 4K.
Mm-hmm.
I seem to be the only person right now, currently on the face of the planet, that is saying, listen, guys, yeah, I get it, 4K TVs. Don't go buy one now because there's very little content that's in 4K. And as soon as I say that, people turn around to go, Andrew, you're an idiot. There's tons of content that's 4K. Netflix has 20-something shows in 4K. Amazon has 12 different shows on 4K. And my response to them is, what network channel's in 4K?
Yeah.
And they look at me like I got 10 heads.
What's a network channel?
Yeah, no, they go, I'm like, what do you want? They're like, what do you want to watch in 4K? I go, I don't know, maybe the Super Bowl. Is football in 4K?
Well, by the way, that's what sold HD, right?
That's exactly what sold HD, and that's why I bought an HD TV in 2002.
HD made non-technical people want to know details and make sure they were getting the right thing. I mean, and that's what you see that the sport it used to be all this demo stuff. Like, they must have they would bring like an HD camera to some random college game, and then they would use this as a demo reel. That they play in Costco or Best Buy or whatever. People would walk up and see that and say, "Oh my God, I have to have that." Yeah, I bet that. I bet. So football. It would be football, and it won't just be 4K. It's going to be like one of those wraparound, super wide angle screen kind of deals. Who knows? Maybe they'll have multiple viewpoints.
Well, here and let me break this down. And I'm not talking. I get it. 4K is beautiful. I get it. I totally get it. But when we're talking about mainstream purchasing, when we're talking about the normal person going and buying a 4K TV, when I bought mine in 2002, I bought it and I watched the Super Bowl in HD. I bought a 1080i. It was a 1080i TV. It's a Hitachi. I still have this TV. I spent $7,000 on this plasma. But when I turned the TV on, I had a cable box. I had a receiver that was HD. I had channels. I had, I think, like the networks and 6 channels with Time Warner Cable. I actually went back. I spent hours looking back to see how much content through the cable providers existed in HD. And some were 1080 and some were 720, obviously. But the issue now is most people that are buying these TVs are not saying, okay, I'm going to watch Netflix in 4K. They want to watch sports. They want to watch whatever they're setting up with their cable setup.
Sure.
We are 3 to 4 years away from the networks even coming near 4K.
I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say.
Well, and I'll tell you what I'm going based on. I'm going based on just Time Warner Cable and Verizon stating that they are 3 years away from it. Time Warner, their infrastructure isn't complete for 4K. Verizon, their infrastructure is set for 4K, but they even this is like last October, they said they're 3 years away from having 4K channels.
Well, I think there's
it's a weird point we're in. This is the first time that the product is out on the market, and there's virtually the cable company has not caught up whatsoever.
Well, I'm sure if you were to go back and look at any successful next gen, whatever it is, DVDs, CDs, laser discs, whatever, there was no content, in the beginning. I mean, obviously it's a different thing when you're looking for content in so many different places, but whatever. I mean, as long as 4K TVs can be great HD TVs, I mean, enthusiasts are going to be the first ones to bite, and they're going to pay big bucks for that, and they're going to seek out that content, and that's neat. But I feel like there's an inflection point that you hit where the rollout of this stuff accelerates dramatically when there's a perceived consumer buy-in, like 3D, like Blu-ray 3D or 3D TVs.
Yeah.
I don't really feel like they're ever hit and will never hit kind of mass market acceptance, right?
No,
for a variety of reasons. There are different standards. And
that's a gimmick too. It's a little gimmicky. And but look at the problem that we have right now with the cable providers. I'm going to talk about the cable providers because I'm not going to talk about Netflix because there's a whole separate issue here. I have. Which I want to get to, the fact that only 19% of the United States can deliver 15 megabits and over, and that's awful. And the rest of the world is really bad too. Obviously, Korea, 2/3 of Korea South Korea has tremendous internet. It's 66% of it. So there's a lot of issues here. But in the United States, only 19% could technically do 4K Netflix, which is insane if you think about it. But right now, the current state of television, you still have channels in 720p. You have channels in 1080. Fine, I get it. Then you have all this compression happening depending on what channel you're on. It is all over the map.
Yeah,
the quality of content that we're getting through even a cable provider. So now add 4K to the mix. You're going to have 3 different high definition standards. It's so confusing and it's all over the place. I'm waiting a couple years to get a 4K TV.
Yeah, I don't. Right. So I don't personally see any benefit to this either. I think we talked about this in the past. Like, I don't see like, Blu-ray 4K being some kind of a thing. Like, I think this is the threshold for purely online-based delivery of content. I don't think a disc format is going to make any sense for 4K.
To the enthusiasts, they're going to get this thing. They're going to get the Avengers in 4K, and they're going to pop it in their Blu-ray, and they're going to go look at this. Oh, my God.
I guess.
You see
and then
so
15
much.
minutes we'll go by and have to switch discs or whatever. But, yeah, I hear you. I can tell you, we can't even watch Netflix sometimes on Saturday night. It's like watching a YouTube movie from 2005. It's like a little blurry blob of pixels, that it's astonishing like how terrible it can be sometimes. So I would also doubt Netflix's capabilities of delivering this content to people, especially on big nights, and the Super Bowl. That's going to be a fascinating test of bandwidth right there.
Yeah, and they seem to be a couple years out on the Super Bowl being in 4K. And unfortunately,
that will help drive it.
Obviously,
when the Super Bowl is in 4K, I think, and the way it happens is people will gather someplace to watch it in 4K, right? And it may be a sports bar or something, or some rich friend's house or whatever. But that's going to sell TV sets. I mean, when they do that, that's how that happens.
Yeah, and I mean, but the reason why I bring this up is that this is the first time that 4K is pretty affordable at this point. It's not out of the reach of people. You could buy a 4K TV for $1,000 right now. A Vizio 4K TV, it's like $1,200, whatever it is. That's pretty affordable when you talk about compared to when high def TVs were out on the market, 1080 TVs were out on the market. There was content that was available. You were spending a couple $1,000 on a HD TV.
Right.
I mean, the fact that it's affordable, it's weird. It didn't match up. Like they didn't grow at the same time where, okay, now it's affordable, but there's content. It's actually affordable and there's not content coming in from the carriers, from the cable companies.
Right. Well, Apple could have an iPad or iPod event next year and this year, I guess. And they could announce iTunes 4K, right? I mean, they could start selling 4K versions of movies that, by the way, will run
great
on a Retina display that they have. They're kind of uniquely situated to provide that kind of thing, where people could actually benefit from resolutions above 1920 by 1080. Maybe. I mean,
it's going to require a lot of content to be for me, the normal person, someone that doesn't really, follow the trends,
right?
Unless the NFL is in 4K or the super, the whatever, a major event, a major reasoning for you to go buy this. You're going to be holding off for a while.
Right. But I mean, things happen. Actually, the more as I'm talking myself into this, Apple would be a great impetus for 4K because they do have those devices. They could sell, I don't know how much an HD movie costs, $14.99 or $19.99. So they could be $24.99 or $29.99. Apple's customers have shown they love spending money. So, they love having the next big thing, in this case, literally. And I think it could... I don't know. I think it happens.
Am I crazy to think that Netflix and Amazon are not enough for people to go and purchase 4K? House of Cards is not enough of a reason to go and buy.
No, House of Cards 4K.
Is not. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
You need more than that. You need.
Right.
I mean, when I got it,
no, that's only for the enthusiasts.
It's for the people watching the show, and I think that's where the disconnect is. Right.
I don't need to see every hair on Kevin Spacey's hairline, so.
He's hanging out for dear life.
Well, no. I think you're right about sports, but I think there are other things. Like I said, I don't think disc formats drive this. It's going to be electronic. It's going to be digital.
Do you think the future of so you're saying with 4K, it's not going to be disc, but is it going to be over the air and cable, or is it going to be online content exclusively that really drive this generation?
Both. It's going to be both. And God, I can't wait until 1080p is the baseline, right? When my cable is just 1080p is like what SD is today. They'll be okay. They'll be nice. But it's going to start getting interesting when you have a cable system that's providing you SD content from the 1980s that was taped on videotape.
Yeah.
And then all the way up through, 4K quality and beyond. I mean, those things are so completely different. SD video is like the equivalent of those freebie videos that shipped on the Windows 95 DVD in 1995.
The 320 by 240 tiny.
Yeah, like the guy skiing or the Weezer video.
So
they're
good.
so low res. And if you were to watch those full screen today on a modern, 1080p display, they would look ridiculous.
Yeah, and listen, how about the abundant amount of content that's in SD currently still?
Yeah.
Channels that are... This is going to be make or break for the cable companies. And really, the only thing that's keeping them here is the fact that watching sports on the internet sucks. And
sure.
it just, you have all these issues with the frame rate, and it just doesn't look as good as watching it on the TV. I mean, that's a fact. It's a disaster. I mean, I've watched football online, and I've watched wrestling through the WWE Network, which is delivering on my TV through a box. Through my Apple TV or whatever. It just doesn't look right. The frame rate, it's off a little bit. The bandwidth, obviously, it's not going to be as good as what you're getting with cable. So,
right.
In order for this to work, everything needs to catch on. And the fact of the matter is only 19% of this country, 12% of the world's broadband. Fine, that's not a fair evaluation because there are a lot of rural places in this world. But 19% of the U.S. could only deliver 15 megabits or more.
15 or 50?
15.
15?
Yeah. 19% of U.S. connections deliver 15 megabits plus.
What is that, like DSL? What's 15 megabits?
I'll tell you right now, a lower-end package from your cable company.
Really?
I think Time Warner does 5 megs. It's a 5 megabit connection for your cheapest one. And most people, when they're buying internet, they're just buying whatever is the entry level. I know people just recently got 25 megabits. I mean, it's insane. Here, look at these stats. The U.S., 2/3. Okay, so Delaware is the most 4K ready state. 39% of its connections offer 50 megabits or more.
39% have 50 or more.
15 or more.
Oh, 15. Okay, I was going to say, geez, that's incredible. I was like, I'm moving to Delaware.
Well, Massachusetts, it's 29%.
Okay.
Washington, 27%. D.C., New Jersey, Rhode Island, 26%. This is a problem.
Yeah. Yep.
I
mean, I could be completely wrong on this. I have this suspicion, you know, whether you're talking about Fios or Comcast or any of these companies, that they get just turning knobs, you know, that my bandwidth could go up to 100 megabits tomorrow and no one would notice and it wouldn't change anything. The problem's going to be that Saturday night, you know, because even at the current levels, like I said, you have problems streaming Netflix, right? This could be Verizon versus Netflix. It could be actual performance, you know, or a bandwidth problems. I'm not really sure. You know, it's like the oil crisis from the 1970s. You know, this is going to continue to be a problem.
And listen, the other issue is the codec that they have to use, right? The cable companies are not going to do H.265 to do 4K. That they're barely able to do it properly. So there's so many issues here with 4K. That's why I say 3 years away. Some people say no, next year. I'm sticking to 3. The cable industry is 3 years away from delivering 4K content.
I don't know. I mean,
let's take a bet right now.
Okay.
When do you think we will see the first 4K cable channel? Or the first 4K network channel?
What about the first 4K Super Bowl?
Okay. First 4K. Perfect.
I think that will happen next year.
You think next year?
Yep. Now, only 13 people are going to watch it. But, you know, those 13 people are going to be really happy.
I'm saying 3 years.
3 years.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I think things happen. I think this kind of thing happens a little more quickly.
I mean, they're probably going to record it in 4K. I'm sure this year's is in 4K.
Oh, that's interesting.
I'm sure they're shooting it in 8K. I mean, it's totally possible, but them recording it, you know what? You know what they'll do? They'll do it online first. They'll do 4K first online.
Well, okay. I mean,
but the cable, I don't think we'll see a 4K channel.
Right.
What is it? Super Bowl's on NBC this year? What is it on?
I have no idea.
Because Fox is still 720. It looks awful. I can't watch a game on Fox.
Well, they need the bandwidth for that stupid robot.
Yeah. And you know it's not alpha transparent, robot?
I'll never let them live the robot down.
They're not doing alpha transparencies. Drives me nuts.
Right.
Stupid robot. All right, guys. Let's wrap it up. We're going to do a post show. We were going to do a phone call show, but we lost our phone line because we only had an hour to use it, and we started the show an hour late. Is it still bright? You know what? It's still bright outside. Look at that. It's not pitch black like I'm used to at 5 o'clock. Go to our website, gfknetwork.com. Guys, I want to hear you. I want to hear your opinion about the 4K stuff because I'm really fascinated. There's so many people on so many different sides, and you know, it's not an argument. It's just a matter of opinion at this point. This is my opinion. I'm holding off to get 4K, but I want to hear from you guys. I want to hear from the people that have purchased a 4K TV on what their experience has been watching, you know, network programming and regular content. You know, even online content. Let us know, because I'm sure Paul's going to be an early adapter of 4K also. Are you thinking about getting 4K at all? Like within the next 2 years?
I have no plans for the short term. I mean, I suspect the TV that's out in my living room dies this year, and when it does, we're going to get a 1080p whatever, right? I mean, so
let's I'm curious on what the next purchase is in the Thurrott household. Next television purchase. I mean, Vizio has them for like $1,200, which is unbelievable. It's 50-inch for four, you know. Great.
Right.
Go to website gfknetwork.com, Thurrott.com, launching this Saturday, a soft launch this Saturday. Go to Thurrott.com right now, and you could sign up for a Thurrott Daily, a daily newsletter. Is it going to have your face on it? Just like you're smiling, like a thumbs up every day?
Literally, as you were speaking, I got the first prototype image of the newsletter in. And it currently has an out-of-date picture of my face.
I'm sure you have hair in that picture.
I do have, yeah, there will be hair. I can promise.
I want a thumbs up. I want to be like, yeah, have an awesome Thurrott day.
Right.
That should be like your catchphrase too. Like, have a Thurrott day.
Yeah.
Go Thurrott yourself.
No, I'd be like a Fox News commentator, and then I'll argue with someone. And when I out-argue them, I'll say, "You've been throttled."
And then
and then I shut off their mic.
That's it, like explosions, pyro, like the reggae horn.
Yeah, I can't really be that antagonistic.
Yeah. Thurrott.com, all things Paul Thurrott. You could also watch Windows Weekly every Wednesday at 2 p.m. East on the Twit Network. You and Mary Jo Foley and Lee Laporte do a phenomenal job. One of my favorite podcasts to listen to. Guys, if you want to help us out, you want to support the podcast, you could do so by going to patreon.com/whatthetech. That's patreon.com/whatthetech. Every penny counts. You guys have been really funding it. We kind of have an idea. We want to turn What the Talk into its own podcast. So we're going to set a goal to make it open to everybody. As long as we're above that goal, it's yours, and anybody could download it. We're going to put it on iTunes. Everywhere podcasts are available. A lot of people have been asking for this. So let's see if we could figure out a number. I'm probably going to figure it out next week. We were going to do a call-in show after this, but because of the traumatic start to the show, we lost our phone line because we're borrowing the phone line. So we will do that next week 100%. We're going to be taking phone calls, and the topic is going to be your predictions for the year. What do you predict for 2015? What are you anticipating for 2015? What are you hoping to see? What do you think is going to happen? We want to hear from you next week about that. It'll be fun. It'll be a nice little change to it. I'm curious on what you guys want to do. If you want to talk about 4K, go ahead. That's it, guys. We'll see you all next week on What the Tech.